Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another fun-filled and exciting, hopefully not exciting, meeting of the Lunenburg Planning Board. This meeting is being held at Town Hall, and it is being recorded on Zoom and broadcast on local TV. That's everything we need to say, right? Lovely. In that case, we'll go in for our first item on the agenda, which is public comment. Seeing none here, do we have any public in the waiting room or anything?
We do not.
Okay. Well, that was easy. Now we're going to go on to a request for de minimis change for 383 Whalum Road.
Not that one. Thank you, folks. Excuse me. Greg Roy with Dillis & Roy. I'm representing the applicant this evening. We were before you earlier this year to request a change of use site plan approval for this site located at 383 Whalum Road, which is right on the corner of Electric Ave and Whalum. It is an automotive garage use. And at the time, we asked you to permit the project for automotive use, which included some retail space and also some auto sales space. The applicant at the time and has subsequently obtained at the time proposed to do some automotive sales and has subsequently, obtained a license from the select board to do that for, I think, somewhere in the 19 vehicles or something like that, 19 or so vehicles to be sold on the property. There's now a proposal to rent a portion of the site, 750 square feet, to a nail salon business. There has actually historically been a nail salon business in that space. It's the space furthest towards Whalum Road. We actually enumerated that on the site plan with a dashed line through the middle of the building where that space would be. And we're before you this evening because that constitutes a change in use as compared to when we were before you earlier this year. The applicant and their tenant is actively looking to receive a business certificate so that the nail salon can take occupancy of that space. And so we're before you this evening to ask for that change. The reason why we are here asking you for a de minimis change is indeed because the parking requirements for the what's known as a personal improvement use in the parking table is the exact same as the retail use. It's one space per 250 square feet. So we're really just reclassifying 750 square feet of that space for the retail space for the personal improvement space. And so the plan memorialized that change, added the personal improvement use code to the parking schedule, and also added the we had delineated within the building where that space was to be located. Other than that, nothing else has changed with the site plan. The applicant is advancing steps at the site to do the various improvements. The site was recently paved, so the next step is going to be to stripe the pavement for the parking that's shown on the approved plan, as well as the other improvements. Most significantly is the berm that we have proposed across the top of the northerly side of the parking lot is to be installed relatively shortly. And other than that, there wasn't a lot of other changes that were proposed to the site. So anyway, that is my pitch, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I do have what I hope is a quick question. With the addition of a second establishment on the same property, is that going to make any changes to the proposed signage at all, as it applies to our bylaws?
Yeah, we've been actually working with the applicant. The building inspector did flag the site for due to the fact that it had excessive signs on the property. The applicant put some signs on the building that weren't allowed by zoning. He has since taken those down. I actually sat with the building commissioner a few weeks back to go through the sign bylaw, which is a little bit difficult to understand. So I think there's a pylon sign that's allowed, a freestanding sign, and then there's a primary building sign and a secondary building sign that's allowed per use in a mixed-use situation. So we've made it clear that, to the applicant, that he's allowed a pylon sign, which exists today. There's no changes really proposed to that other than to just put Jack's Garage on it. It's the same size, same location. Then he's allowed a primary sign and a secondary sign. My recollection is 36 square feet for the primary, 18 square feet, half the size for the secondary sign for the Jack's Garage use. And at such time as he's granted a occupancy for the next tenant, he would be allowed an additional primary sign and an additional secondary sign for that additional use. So that would be forthcoming once that's, so I always have a hard time interpreting the sign bylaw, so I took a minute and sat with Brian to make sure we had that right.
And those changes are not things that need to be made then on the site plan?
No, there's a mechanism for us to ask you for some additional directional signs, so additional signs over and above those on the building through a process through your board. We're not asking for those this evening. We may come back and ask them at a later date, but we're not asking for those at this point.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions, other questions from the board?
Don't have any.
My recollection, I do have a question.
Okay.
My recollection was that the only spaces that we required to have painted before were the handicap, the 2 spaces in front.
Yeah, I believe that's true.
Has that changed?
Yeah. I don't think, are you intending to stripe all of them? You're going to stripe the whole thing, even the bay at the top?
If you want, yeah, I will do handicap.
Yeah.
I'm planning to, actually, I pay for all my property.
Yeah. So I think the intention is just, he's going to have a pavement striper out.
Handicap, I'll put handicap.
Well, yeah, certainly those are required, but I think the intention is just to stripe the whole thing to avoid confusion.
I mean, as far as the parking being the same in our requirement table, there's going to be more trips in and out, I would assume, with nail salon rather than auto repair.
I guess, though, the the space in question was proposed as retail at the time. So the question would be whether nail salon and retail create different dynamic.
Oh, it was already 2 uses.
It was shown as
It was a
retail
re-
for that extra $750.
My
That's right.
mistake.
Yeah. So you have to compare retail to nail salon, which may be a little different, but not as,
Well, and retail, can run the gamut.
right.
I think, now, this is memorialized, I'm sure, in the decision, so, but I thought we required as well the striping on the spot labeled 10 spaces towards the top of the site plan. I thought we were also requiring those striped as well, and not the 11 spaces, auto sales only.
I think that's true, because
Yeah.
those are the spaces that were
Yeah.
designated for patrons of the establishment, not for auto sales. And that's what we intend to do.
And the furthest extent west of, or east of those has the potential to impact the entrance if it's not held to where it is.
Yeah.
All right,
So we don't propose any changes to what you already required in your decision. We're not asking for any modifications to that. The only change we may do is just to go and stripe more than you required, so
that's
that would be all that would do, yeah. Yep.
all right.
But you're still showing striping off the property, but that's probably moot.
Yeah, we won't be doing that. So we'll stop the it's a little tricky because the pavement goes off the property, so it's, and again, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel there, but we'll certainly not stripe on that. I think that's one of the reasons why we weren't intending to stripe that bay.
Okay, I have no further questions.
All right. For a de minimis change, it's not a hearing, we don't need to, we can open it.
Correct,
we
you
don't
need to find
close
that the change is de minimis, and then you need to decide whether you're going to approve or not approve.
Okay, so we need to vote to see if the change is de minimis.
Correct.
All right, I would look for, with no further questions or comments, I would look for a motion from the board on whether or not this change we feel is de minimis. And do we need a definition of de minimis with that? That's a fair question.
No, would that just be submitting a motion to treat the change as de minimis, or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then that. Put forward a motion to treat the change as de minimis.
I will second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, it's a de minimis change. Do we wish to accept this de minimis change? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to accept de minimis change.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Bang-a-rang. We're all
Very
set.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have a public hearing, site plan approval for 1236 Reservoir Road. What's that?
263.
Oh, thank you. Just correction, the site plan approval for 1263 Reservoir Road. Thank you, Mr. Allison.
Sure.
And
Public hearing?
it is a public hearing, so we need that announcement.
Do you have it? I couldn't find it. Okay, the Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on August 28th, 6:05 PM, Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass., to hear and review a site plan approval application under Chapter 250-8.4 of the Code of the Town of Lunenburg for 1263 Reservoir Road, parcel number 142-0006-00. Applicant is PJ Keating of 998 Reservoir Road, Lunenburg. Materials are available for viewing at the planning office at 960 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg.
Thank you. Ms. Reed.
Good evening. My name is Mark Pillsbury. I'm with the PJ Keating Company. We're here before the board tonight requesting permission to construct a 3,350 square foot structure. It'll be sited near the existing asphalt plant. And its closest proximity would be to Leominster Shirley Road. The structure is steel truss and fabric covered. Its intended use is to cover our wrap pile, so recycled asphalt, which is being required by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for us to cover that pile, to be within spec.
I'm actually going to apologize. I am slightly hard of hearing.
Yep.
So if I could ask you to speak slightly slower, that would be you're not speaking that fast, but it would just be helpful for me, if you don't
Not a
mind.
problem.
Thank you.
You want me to repeat anything, or are you good?
Yeah, if you can go back a few sentences,
Sure.
that would be helpful.
So, it is a fabric-covered structure. It is steel truss. It'll be sited close to the existing asphalt plant, closest proximity to Leominster Shirley Road. And the Massachusetts Department of Transportation is specifying that we cover our recycled asphalt pile, which is why we're asking for the request.
Great.
So we're well within our setbacks. We're 101 feet from Leominster Shirley Road. We're 348 from Reservoir. We're 1,400 feet from the east property line, and we're 650 feet from the MBTA property line. And really, this poses no change to our existing process. We'll actually be covering the spot where the pile is currently existing, up close to our coal feed bins for the asphalt plant. We're not impacting any wetlands.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be on impervious surface.
For members of the board, in addition to, if you're looking for the files for this, I see 1263 Reservoir SPA. I also see GO PJK Lunenburg Shed Permit is another file for this one.
So the structure is very similar to what you see the towns using for salt sheds. It's a Quonset hut type structure.
Okay. All right, I see that you are asking for several waivers.
Yes.
Could we go through those, please?
Sure. So the first one is for the drainage calculations. Where we are on the impervious surface, we're not going to change any of our drainage. There's no traffic analysis included in this application, as we won't be contributing any more traffic to the existing roadways. The stormwater analysis is not included. We're not going to result in any more stormwater. The fiscal analysis are not included. They'll have no effect on the town's finances. Environmental analysis not included, as the project is beneficial to the environment, promoting the use of recycled asphalt. Parking plan not included. There's no new parking proposed. And as I stated earlier, the wetlands are not impacted. The floodplain is not included. There's no floodplain present. No signage. No trees proposed to be removed.
And then just
And-
traffic twice.
Yeah, we just did traffic twice.
And this project is effectively plunking down a cover over an already impervious surface to further prevent runoff from the asphalt recycling pile or whatever. Is that correct?
Correct, and to keep moisture off the pile.
Great. All right. I would turn to the board for any questions we may have.
No, everything was in line with what I would expect. No additional questions.
My only question was what wrap meant, but we
Recycled
defined
asphalt
it,
product.
so I'm good. Understand.
No, I'm good too. Thank you for coming to us. I don't think PJ Keating's has ever come to us before, in your history anyway. I'm kind
I've
of,
dealt with them a lot on different things. I don't know if any of it had to do with this board.
yeah. I'm almost surprised that it actually needed the site plan review, but
Well, and they filed for the building permit, and
yeah.
in calculating what there's a lot on that site, but a lot of it isn't building. So when you put 3,300 square feet of footprint down, you get to like 36% of the building area. So it tripped that threshold of 5,000 or 25%. And I mean, they've been great. They haven't complained. They've got us everything we asked, and it's been an easy process.
Great.
So should we handle the waivers separately?
Yeah, I mean, I would vote on the waivers and then vote on the decision.
And do we vote on the waivers before we close the hearing, or is that after?
You can kind of do it either way.
Let's-
I mean, if you do it before, if one doesn't pass, then you don't have to reopen the hearing.
That was my thought
Yeah.
on it. So if there are no more questions, I would accept a motion. I'd like us to first look at the waivers, so we don't have to reopen the hearing if there's an issue.
Any issues with the waivers?
Yeah, I don't either.
And we need to, do we need to mention the waivers specifically in the
No,
motion?
you can mention them as requested.
As requested, okay.
You ready?
Yep.
I move that we accept the waivers as requested.
I will second.
Moved and seconded. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Great. And last time for questions before we close, before we look for a motion to close the public hearing?
Public comment.
Great, I would accept,
Oh, comment.
oh, public comment, thank you. Is there any public comment? I see no members of public in the room, aside from the applicants. And none in the Zoom?
Nope.
Great. All right, in that case, I would accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, public hearing closed. Do we have any deliberation? Yeah, all right. I would accept, are we gonna need, do we need to make any,
Whoever makes the motion would probably just attach the standard conditions, and you probably want to attach construction hours.
That's what I was gonna say.
Which, again, I think historically, the board has gone for 7 to 5, 8 to 3 in commercial industrial areas. I think the nearest residence here is probably more than a quarter and probably closer to a mile away.
Do you think they're gonna notice the noise of the construction?
No, do I think? No, I don't.
Okay.
That's what I know we have a.
I don't suspect that they're going to go beyond those construction hours anyway, just because generally if you're working Saturdays or after 3 or 4 o'clock, you're paying them extra anyway, but.
That's fair. All right. Do we have thoughts on standard construction hours? Does that work for us for the?
Sure.
Yep.
Standard for industrial zone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Then, if someone wishes to make a motion, I'd be happy to hear it.
Motion to approve the site plan with the standard industrial construction hours and other
And standard conditions?
standard conditions. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Great.
I will second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Great.
Super.
You're all set.
Thank you.
So
Thanks
just
for
a
your time.
heads up, they'll sign the decision at the next meeting. I know you're probably hot to get started. I can move the building permit forward. You're allowed to get the building permit at risk, at your own peril. So you can start, you can work with Brian to make sure you get his drawings that he needs, foundation that you need. You can dig the hole, you can pour the foundation. If someone decides to appeal, that could be a mess for you, but there's no one here, so it's relatively unlikely, but I have to let you know that it's at risk.
Okay. Sure. And then a month from now, or we'll get the official?
So they'll sign it next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks. And then it will get recorded, there's a 20-day appeal period, and then
Okay.
you have to go record it.
Okay,
But
Yep.
relatively simple stuff, and I'll include it all in my email.
excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love it when things are straightforward. It's so nice. So, next up are board discussions. And looks like we'll start with Master Plan Steering Committee.
So I've received information from all of the members of the steering committee that are currently seated about availability. I think probably the week of September 11th, we will have our first meeting. I have to go through and noodle out what day is the best for everyone, and that will be a kickoff to set officers, discuss meeting schedule, expectations, and I know at least Rami from Over Under wants to come out and meet everyone in person, and then sort of go from there with what we're doing. While we're talking about the steering committee, I'll also draw your attention to, in your folders, and I think, Matt, you probably have one, there's a Lunenburg engagement file.
Yep.
And this is a proposal from Over Under on a master plan website that would be hosted and managed separate from the town website as a place that they would have access to put updates, survey links, and collect information on folks who want to be notified as things happen, so that we can be nimble and funnel folks to one specific place and not have to go through the town website and have it be connected directly to Lunenburg from the URL. We're going to attempt for Plan Lunenburg, as that's essentially what the master plan is for planning what Lunenburg will look like and do in the future. And these are some of the things that they're proposing and have sort of mocked up to go on the website. And I wanted to get the board's input before, A, purchasing the domain and hosting, and B, giving them the go-ahead to put time and energy into it and spend some money on their staff time doing it. But I think this is a good and simple engagement tool, and it can be linked from our website. It also gives someone an easy place to just go back and boom, and as they do stuff, they'll be uploading work product.
I didn't have any, anything that was glaring as should be different or added. I was pretty happy with what I saw here in terms of what the website will be. So, yeah.
I'm just grateful that we can direct them to a straightforward, them being members of the community, to a straightforward URL, so that, because QR codes are great for those who use QR codes. But
when you get a QR code on your phone, it's hard to make it work.
yes, it is.
So
Okay.
this seems approachable to everybody?
I like it.
I'll give you one other update while we're talking about this. Matt has already squeed over this, so don't mind his sedateness. They are working on the model, and I've seen the mock-up of it.
Nice.
It's about 5 feet by 7 feet, they said. They've designed it, they're seeking someone to build it at a cost that they think is reasonable and approachable. But it's an exaggerated Z-axis topographic model that has a Lexon cover with all the roads and buildings and houses on that. So it's a flat surface that you can look down and see the topography underneath. It's marker board compatible, so you can write on the surface, and they are planning to do things with overlays on the clear top, so you can kind of see what different things might do or what changes might alter things, and you kind of get a town scale of it. And it's interesting because, at least what they showed, the flat surface was cut out in the shape of the town border, so you can walk into that little crux over by Summer Street where Leominster is and sort of stand in the town. And it's really sort of an interesting approach. And it'll break down into 4 pieces for travel, and we'll find a permanent home for it after the conclusion of the planning process.
Sounds good. One more question is how are we on membership on that group?
We have 4 at-large members and a select board member still hanging out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not had a chance, I did not yet follow up with Caesar, like our
That's okay.
discussion the other day. so
I made a faux pas of including one of the select board members because I took away from one of their meetings that they had tacitly volunteered, and I was told that's not the case.
So the request that we sent to them went over as well as expected, but
I think that they accepted and understood why. I just don't think that they have found an agreement on who it will be.
good enough.
And I will, Caesar being our liaison, I plan to reach out to him and just kind of poke and see what's up and hopefully have a conversation so that can get back to the select board. And
Well, I believe Caesar was the one who volunteered for it in the first place, wasn't he?
I had thought it was Ms. Emke.
Okay, I probably am mistaken.
But again, I watch their meetings while I'm doing other things, so sometimes I miss and hear what they have said.
one of the things I like about the 3D map and having the overlays is that means long-term, not only do we have this, but the use the town can have for it in the future is
Infinite.
fantastic, right? I mean, one group wants to pass a bylaw influencing specific things at town. For town meeting, they can make an overlay to put on top of it, set it up at the start of before the start of town meeting, and people could see it on the way in and see exactly what they mean. The school's doing a project, it could be available. The Historical Society wants to make if they want to make an overlay about the history of Lunenburg to have out at some events. I did squee about this design because it takes something 3D, but having that 2D overlay means it's super reusable. And I think that's going to be a great value add for the town in the long term, too. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's what I have now. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anyone else on the Master Plan Steering Committee? All right. We've got solar bylaw.
So, I've included an update from what was sent around the last time around. There were some changes that were recommended by the building commissioner. I think they make perfect sense. One was adding that the canopies can't reduce the minimum parking required by the uses present or intended, which is a duh, but yeah, should probably be in there. And the other is on the charging for EVs, and I think what his contribution was makes sense. And taking out the ADA and putting in the AAB is perfect, because that's who's going to govern it. The other piece of this will be an amendment to the actual solar bylaw, adding an exemption from the large-scale system definition for solar canopies in commercial industrial zones, because I'm going to infer that most, if not all of these, will be greater than 10 kW. So thus would be classified as a large-scale system, which would need a special permit. This already requires a special permit, and I think the 200-foot setbacks for large-scale and the 20-acre size would exclude probably almost every parcel, except for maybe like Lunenburg Central and Walmart, from the ability to install these, and I don't believe that that was the board's intention, especially where they're to go over existing parking areas.
I do want to add that I brought up to the Economic Development Committee that we had been looking at this solar bylaw, just as a way of kind of communicating communicating to them that there is an active back and forth and information exchange, because they're the ones who had brought up that there was federal money potentially on the table for this. And in the past, they've expressed whether or not one agrees with it. Some members there have expressed frustration that Lunenburg can feel anti-business, and they were very much appreciative that we are looking at this, considering it, seeing if there's a way we can make it work, really as a way to help out businesses that are here, as well as the economic, environmental impact, etc. And Adam, I apologize, I haven't really had a chance to dive deep. I'm going to do that this week, probably,
Okay.
once the kids are at school.
So I will note that the warrant closes on the 18th of September. So that will be 1 week post our next meeting. So we should dial in anything that we plan to submit for that. And if the board feels that there is something that isn't to their liking or isn't, in their opinion, ready, then we should decide at that meeting that that's what it is and plan to hold that off until the spring.
I would encourage us all, if possible, to do a deep dive before the next meeting, as well as, if it's feasible, send comments along to Adam ahead of time. So that there needs to be hammering out, that's possibly
Yeah,
something.
and
we
if you
could-
want to come in, ask questions, have a discussion, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to have that discussion and replicate it at the meeting on the 11th, if that's something folks are interested in doing, because they feel their questions should be aired in public, that's fine. I would just rather have us be at a place where we at least understand each other's perspective and have answers, counterpoints that we're all aware of, instead of trying to hammer it out at that meeting.
All right, do we have any questions or comments on the solar bylaw currently? All right. Okay, now driveways and entrances. Do we have more discussion on that currently?
I am waiting for input from the board. I made the changes that I believe that the board had requested at the last time we spoke about it collectively. So I think I've hit the points the board was looking for.
This was from the meeting 626.
Yeah, that was
the
when
last
we,
one
that
there?
was when we discussed it.
Yep, okay.
I've had to put that on my list of homework for this week.
And that included the, so the inclusion of utility and maintenance in the access easement title. I moved number 8 down to the design criteria, because that's more a design thing, having the entrance and sketch at the street so people know where it is. And then we discussed having numerical placards at each branch so people knew where they were going. And then I think the only other thing, to bring it in line with subdivision, I changed the grade to 2% within 75 feet of street lines, just so there was a standardization to that. I think the only other question that had been left up was, I think there was some discussion on commercial of it being 6 lots and 1,800 feet with public water, or 4 lots and 1,200 feet without. So I'll have to make that change if that's what the board is in favor of.
What was our logic? I remember that discussion, and I don't remember the logic behind that.
Fire hoses.
Mm-hmm.
So more, I get it.
Without public water, it's harder to get water there. With
Yeah.
public water,
Yeah.
the installation of hydrants is easier and would be likely along points on the driveway.
Yeah, that took me some moment and do we need to include language about the installation of hydrants, or is that a fire department thing that they?
Well, it would be either site plan or as part of the special permit, the fire department would weigh in, and you can use the fire department at that point to
Okay.
classify where they would like the hydrants.
Thank you. Okay, that gels it back in my mind. Thank you very much. And again, this is something that if we feel comfortable with it at our next meeting in 2 weeks, we can, that is something that can go forward onto the
Correct.
fall town meeting.
Yep.
So I think we might have discussed it before, but don't we currently have a max grade of 12%? And now
We do.
we're going down to a max grade of 10%?
We do, and the max grade of 12% is for residential driveways. It's 10% for commercial driveways.
Okay.
And my feeling was keeping it at the lower number on a place where there would be greater traffic is probably a safer idea
Okay.
to avoid that extra 2% of incline and inclement weather and all sorts of
So,
icy business.
but the residential is still at 10%.
Correct. Well, you're also dealing with you're dealing with more people using it. Would you like to bump it back to 12 so it's matching?
I don't know, I mean, you could be potentially severely impacting buildability of future lots, and they're gonna get worse, they're gonna get harder to build.
Yep.
All the good stuff has already been built on, so, it's just something to think about, and I wanted everybody to be aware of it, because, we currently do allow 12%.
So I'm just thinking about this out loud. So cutting it back to 10% in theory should make the common driveway safer, which makes sense given the increased traffic. But we may end up with fewer common driveways and just therefore more single driveways, because the single driveways could still hit the 12% grade.
The other way I might think about it is currently even a common driveway doesn't serve more than 2 units, and now we're serving 4. And if it's going to get harder, instead of having maybe a driveway that has to come straight in and does this, or has a bunch of really small switchbacks to stay on the lot, you offer 400 feet of width instead of 100 feet with which to be able to navigate along topography to gain access. So you said that and I was like, oh, you're right. But then I thought about it and I'm wondering if, it could be true that it makes it harder in some instances, but also easier in other instances. And those may balance out in the long run of buildability on some of these lots. And I don't know that there's an answer that covers everything.
I guess the reason I brought up the existing 12 is because if you've got, and it's still happening, there's still a lot of available lots to do it. Usually you break off a second lot from your existing house, and you want to use that same driveway to access the second house, and if it's more than 10%, then technically you can't.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
That's a good point.
I might say that might be an opportunity to avail yourself of the special permit dimensional variation.
A ZBA?
Yeah. Because in an instance where using that existing driveway makes sense and the stub off of that driveway can meet the 10%, the zoning board may feel that in that instance it's an appropriate use.
Okay, and then it's dimension, so they can vary.
Yeah. I know that on Goodrich Street a few years ago, there was a woman who had a driveway. It went up and switched back, and the house was at the top of the hill, and she was proposing to build herself a new home at the switchback, but the driveway to that switchback was 13.5%, and the zoning board did give her that because it was an existing condition, and so it was expansion on, and she might have even done a section 7 expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming.
Wasn't that over 1,200 feet too? Neither here nor there.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So I said that kind of quickly without thinking much about it, but grade is a dimension?
Yep.
That,
That's how it's been interpreted previously.
okay. Okay.
Okay. So, it sounds like this is another opportunity another chance for us to have one more opportunity to really do a deep dive as we're interested, weigh in on our thoughts, ideally ahead of time.
Sure.
We all have many commitments, so I know that's easier said than done, but, all right. And Aquifer Protection Bylaw.
So this, I'm going to take an opportunity to apologize because my memo from the last meeting and this draft are not good. In my harried state to get something to the board to review, I made a mistake on the existing bylaw. Currently, the Zone 3 doesn't require a special permit for any of the uses. It allows the same uses as what the Zone 2 allows by special permit, in addition to a few more, as long as all other permits and approvals are gained, either site plan, conservation, or anything the water district may require. So the amendments that I made for the 8 August draft of the Water Supply Protection District actually increase the burden of somebody performing those uses in the Zone 3 because it requires them by special permit. So what I would like to do is take some time in the next couple of days. I've already sort of looked at it. I found this last week as I was going through it and preparing for this meeting to discuss it. So I have sort of mapped out what I think I would like to do, but I would like to get this to the board in the next, 48 hours so that you have time to really dig into it for the next meeting. But functionally, what I'm sort of thinking is, I have talked to some colleagues about some other items as well, but taking the permitted uses in the special permits and then adding a section for Zone 3 that notes that those items similarly are allowed but are required to have existing required permits. And I have to follow up with the Water District. My understanding is they're in favor of not regulating Zone 3 because they see opportunities for growth and expansion in the Zone 3, and where DEP doesn't require the regulation in 3, it doesn't have a direct impact on their ability to continue to have a water supply and maintain that water supply. But I don't want to comment on their position because I haven't had a discussion with the superintendent.
It sounds to me like we are in a less sure place with this than we are with the other 2 bylaws in terms of our overall thoughts. Is that correct?
That's where I am.
Okay.
I would agree.
And is this something, I don't think it is, but my memory is only so good. This is not something that we're in a rush and need to get out right away to meet some requirements.
No, we don't have any significant requirement.
So if we had something together, really liked it, we could put it forward for fall town meeting, but that isn't something we necessarily need to do.
Correct.
I am personally all about if we have something good, no reason to wait, but that's always an if. Okay.
And so I just want to be clear from my perspective that the last time we discussed this, the biggest concern was what happens in Zone 3 and how regulating Zone 3 might be done within this bylaw, and that the contents of what was happening within the Zone 2 and allowing for greater than 15% with recharge and all of that was not necessarily a stumbling block for the board. It was more about rolling back Zone 3 protections.
And we were considering what we could or should keep or put together for Zone 3 protections.
Correct.
Meanwhile, the Water District themselves may be communicating that they don't feel that Zone 3 protections are necessary at this time. I'm curious about our thoughts on that overall, because I don't, my personal gut is to trust the experts, and if the water district thinks protections in Zone 3 are probably not needed, they may have a good point, but I would value our thoughts on that as a group, because I don't really know what I feel. I don't know if I know enough.
Not to step on anybody's toes, but I'm not sure how much weight we'd put on the water district's opinion on protection of a Zone 3.
And that's fine.
Right. And that being said, I don't think that this is ready, quite honestly. I mean, I think it's going to take considerably more than one meeting to, it's just my opinion.
Would you be willing, and if not, that's fine, to elaborate why? What your thoughts are that lead you to not necessarily worrying about the water district's interpretation of need for protecting Zone 3?
Not that I won't, not that I'm worried about it. It's, I think that, you know, like any business, they're looking at their bottom line, they're looking at their customer base, they're looking at their infrastructure. You know, if they can have less restrictions to do, and I'm not sure what, I thought I heard Adam say was it leaves it more developable. Was that for the residents in general, or was that for the water district? Or?
I think it was just in general. That was, and again, I haven't had a full conversation. This is my recollection from when we talked about this back June, when I first started doing this.
No, I mean, I certainly would take into consideration their input, but I wouldn't just look at that business that is not a town entity
That's fair.
and say that, well, you don't really need to protect that part of your town.
Very valid point. Sound even. Thank you. For those who enjoyed their logic terminology. All right. Other thoughts on water district? Or not water protection, but the thing we're discussing. All right, great. That wraps up board discussions. We have the minutes approval for 8/14/23. I have not yet had a chance to review that meeting, so I do not plan to vote. I plan to abstain myself, so I'll take y'all's lead for when you're ready to make a motion or whatnot.
Motion to accept minutes as provided.
I will second.
Moved and seconded. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain. And there we go.
Excuse me.
On to committee reports. Open Space Ad Hoc Committee.
Yes, we deferred, we skipped our August meeting, so I'm expecting we'll be meeting again in the mid-month, September.
Okay. Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee.
We did meet. It was pretty short agenda. The we were trying to think about ways to, well, the discussion started off with that we're no longer with options. What did they call that? The fifth option was the chosen one by the select board, and they wanted to scramble around and get a number to ask at town hall. I was kind of against that and mentioned to town manager's report had said that there were 20-plus leaks in TC Passios, and that we have a facilities director, and I assume we have some budget for DPW. That being a town building, not a school building anymore, I think it's officially a town building. I don't see any reason that we would need to go to great lengths getting architects' assessments of our Class 3 tear-down numbers that are just really inflated. We should actually put some numbers to putting on a new roof and go from there, if that's going to be the mainstay of the transition plan. There was some agreement on that. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. The discussion was also talking about the school committee apparently had decided to let their discussions hold off for Turkey Hill's future and future school needs until the Municipal Building Design Committee got together and got some figures. So it was kind of back and forth.
All right. Thank you. AgCom.
The Agricultural Commission, we were able to meet with town council at our last meeting. And we had discussions about the current bylaw that references farm size, stating 5 acres, and now that the state has reduced that requirement to 2 plus additional income requirements, that there was an interest in updating our bylaw. And he came up with a couple of good proposals, and the question was coming to this board if we wanted something to do with that, nothing to do with that. It's a little bit odd since I'm chair of that and I'm member to this. We certainly could do it, but I think it would just be a little bit neater and easier if the planning board did it. I'm not entirely sure about that. But we would certainly be able to speak to it at town meeting.
I mean, it's a general bylaw, correct?
I think it's zoning. Well, the protective, yeah.
So are we talking about definition?
There were 3 specific instances where it referenced 5 acres for farm.
Because the right to farm bylaw is general.
Okay, that wasn't it though.
Okay, I'm just trying, okay, so,
I'm pretty
okay,
sure.
yep, so the definition is a parcel of land, 5 acres or more used for grain, blah, 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 blah. If it's a zoning bylaw, I don't think the planning board doing it would be out of line. And if I recall correctly, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7, maybe even before you were on AgCom, someone, they proposed this change.
I have always been on AgCom.
Have you?
Always.
I didn't think you were on AgCom when I first
I
started
wasn't
here.
an appointed member. I was
Oh,
the
well.
liaison from.
Yeah, but I mean, before you were an actual
Okay,
member.
yes.
I thought that the
did.
AgCom attempted to make the change,
They
and
presented to the select.
there was a lot
and
of
it got-
confusion,
it got
and there was a
sidetracked.
lot of, like,
A lot of nonsense.
yeah, and so where it's wrapped up in something that this board has more familiarity with and has staff support to present, I wouldn't think it would be, again, like I said, out of line.
Yeah. And then also, just to follow up, Attorney Costa did mention that it is a state law and it's a zoning exemption and it's already applicable regardless of what our bylaw says.
Correct.
So
We would-
basically, it's just neatening up and
Yeah.
correcting our bylaw.
Yep.
And that should have been the entire conversation at the select board 6 or 7 years ago. But we didn't have that.
So I'm not wrong, it was that long ago.
It was that long ago.
Because I think Mr. Mendoza at the time was,
Yep, Mr. McMillan was also there.
that was, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to get me the chapter and verse of each of those references.
Okay. I think we can just forward you the PDFs that we looked at.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I'll just, I'll put something together that shows the red line version, and I'll have it for the board for the next meeting.
I would just, so, because this has been a two-person discussion so far, I would
Sorry.
like, no, I happen to agree with everything that's been said, but I want to turn to the board as a whole and see if that's a direction we would like to go, of potentially taking over this bylaw change to get everything tidied up and match what the state says. I'm seeing approval, and we don't need a vote, so bang-a-rang. I also want to say that I am grateful that it is now a matter of public record that Mr. Allison has been on AgCom since before his birth and before the founding of Lunenburg.
No.
Always.
Since we had AgCom.
You said always, sir, and I choose to be literal in this one instance for humor value.
From birth. Yep.
All right, great. Now we are on to Capital Planning Committee. It's that time of year, everybody. First Capital Planning Committee meeting is on Wednesday. Please say your prayers for my wife, who will not see me in the evenings for the next couple months. It's not quite that intense, but it is definitely a more time-crunched committee. First meeting's on Wednesday. Economic Development Committee. We did meet last Thursday, and let me get the highlight reel here. There was some discussion about the LBA. I mentioned to them, as I said before, hey, we heard what you said about business. We heard what you had said about maybe we can get a piece of this federal money that's being given out. So maybe we can help with that. I communicated that back and forth. There were some new business updates, things that we have mostly already generally heard about because they've come before us, or haven't because they don't pertain to us whatsoever. The key thing is the town official meet and greet. Everyone on this board should have hopefully received invitations to that in your email on September 28th.
8th.
It is, on September 28th. If that is something you're interested in being part of, and again, this is a chance for business owners and prospective business owners of Lunenburg to meet town officials and put faces with names and hopefully make our government feel less labyrinthian and more human to those who aren't used to navigating town government. And if you should have received that. If not, let me know or email Josie Gilchrist, and please respond one way or another. And I will mention this again. It will be happening at Low Places Ranch, and I will mention this again.
The riding arena, not the retail store.
Okay, thank you. I will be mentioning this again during board comment in case there are people who just tune in for that. But there's an opportunity for businesses to make donations towards this, towards things like the food and drinks, to make this a success. And they can reach out to Josie Gilchrist. I can get her email address called up. I meant to do that before we left. It is J. Gilchrist, JGILCHREST @lunenburgma.gov. And if you're a business that is interested in making a donation to help make this kind of government business outreach event a success, please reach out to her. I'm going to repeat that, like I said, a bit later in case people are selective about when they view. Am I missing anything from that?
I don't believe so.
Great. Then, getting back, Stormwater Task Force.
There has not been another meeting of the Stormwater Task Force.
Okay, MRPC.
MRPC, we have not met since our last meeting. We'll be meeting, I think, next week. And the same for MJTC. We have not met since last meeting. We'll meet next week.
And because I am guilty of always using the letter soup, for those following along at home, MRPC is Montechusett Regional Planning Committee? Commission, thank you. And MJTC is Montechusett Joint Transportation Commission.
That's actually a committee.
I,
They toy with you by switching them back and
One or
forth.
the other. It's really the same at some point.
I am the smartest planning board chair you have right now, and I am so sorry. All right, director's item. There's none unless you wish
No.
to surprise us.
Well, surprise.
Meeting schedule. Our meetings are at 6 PM at Town Hall unless otherwise indicated, including upcoming meetings on September 11th and September 25th.
While we're discussing meetings, oh no, it's too early, forget it.
All right,
Done.
we will never know, well, we will know later, I guess. All right, ongoing items. Anything we wish to touch on the ongoing
We've talked
items?
about the master plan, we've talked about the protection district. There have been some changes to the MBTA communities. I'm in the process of reviewing those, and I'm still waiting to hear about some updates from Karen Chapman at the Planning Commission. My understanding is she's still waiting for answers, so there we go. The next two items, we never heard back from the chair of the select board on, and Pondview Commons is still going through its HAC process. HAC being the Housing Advisory Committee.
Awesome. Great, thank you, Adam. Anything else on the ongoing items from anyone else here that wants to? All right, public comment. I see no public in the room. Do we have anyone
We do not.
on Zoom? Okay, so there will be no public comment. Board comment concerns. Well, again, I'm going to mention now, on September 28th, there will be a meet and greet where both business owners in Lunenburg and potential business owners in Lunenburg can meet with town officials, town employees, and have the opportunity to put names and faces together, as well as just kind of chat. And, I mean, if you have a question, ask it, but just the idea is to build those connections. And that is September 28th at Low Places Ranch Riding Arena. And I know that there's info about that, and I think there's some info on Facebook about it as well.
That's what I hear.
Okay.
I don't do the Facebook.
Fair. And in addition, if you're a business that wishes to make a donation to help make this a success, you could reach out to Josie Gilchrist, who is organizing this. A business owner organizing this, member of the Economic Development Committee. You can reach her at jgilchrist, JGILCHREST, at lunenburgma.gov. And if you wish to make a donation to help make this a success for the community, it would be very much appreciated. Any other board comments? You looked thoughtful, Mr. Ellison, and that often means I'm getting ready for something good.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, at 1 hour, 13 minutes of meeting, that's a pretty impressive. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.